Alright, episode 23, and today we're talking about the Binturong. This has got to be probably the most difficult build I have ever done in this game. My original plan was to, as you can see, pretty much make a path that has walls that can divide one side from the other, allowing people to walk through and have the Binturongs walk over top of them through a catwalk, but still be able to see through either wall. That did not work, and it was very disappointing because the raw unedited video I have of this is about an hour and 25 minutes long. So there's going to be a decent amount of editing, and if you have motion sickness, maybe just do the audio for this episode. Anyway, let's get into the episode in proper. So today we're speaking about the Binturong, like I said, and it goes by a few different names depending on where you're from. The name that we know of the Binturong is the Bornean name. In the island of Reo, it is known as the Binturong, and it is also colloquially known as the bear cat. Now, this animal is not any form of bear or cat or any other species. It is actually extremely unique, having only two living relatives. One is the more well-known civet, which you may know for their coffee creation. We will actually be getting into that a little bit later on. But it is a fairly unique creature, seeing how the class it comes from isn't really a cat or a dog. It's not a weasel. It's not a form of lemur of any kind. It is its own beast. Now, where is this animal located? Well, it is obviously from Southeast Asia, since how this is an animal from that specific DLC pack. It is native to the northeast zone of India, Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, southeast Chinese border, Malaysia, Sumatra, Borneo, West Java, and the islands of Palawan in the Philippines. Now, even getting into its scientific categorization, it is fairly confusing on what this animal is. Now, like I said, it is related to civets and another animal known as ganets, which are all a part of the viverrid family, and scientifically it is known as the Arcticus binturong. Arcticus means bear weasel, so even with the scientific naming, they weren't really sure what this animal was, and binturong is actually a Malaya-Polynesian term that we actually don't have a direct translation to, so it is kind of difficult to tell what it was originally supposed to mean. However, it is the name that stuck, and what we will be calling it throughout the video. Now, because the exhibit originally was supposed to be somewhat of an indoor enclosure, I did end up making a wall of stone because I felt that it just looked better than making it concrete or bamboo like I did for the interior, and that is what I am currently working on to get it into shape. Now, let's actually get into what the Binturong even is in more than just name. So the Binturong is an arboreal animal that is pretty much exclusively found in the high canopies of the jungle, and can only occasionally be seen walking on the forest floor if it needs to transfer itself to another set of trees that it can't easily walk across. Unlike ganets and civets, they aren't that skilled at leaping, meaning that if they need to get to another tree, they will have to climb all the way down and all the way back up. Now, this is most likely due to the fact that, compared to the other two, Binturongs are very heavy. They have a rough average weight of about 45 pounds, and the females are actually roughly 20% larger than males on average. They have a long prehensile tail that helps them keep balance and help them actually climb, and it is roughly half the size of their entire body. So about 50% of the animal is straight tail. They are a nocturnal animal, mostly solitary in nature, and usually use a form of scent marker, as with many animals, to dictate a general area of control. Now, a very interesting aspect of these scent markers is actually the fact of the way it smells. Binturongs are famous for smelling like buttered popcorn. And the reason for that is chemical composition of, artificial butter, when baked in a way that would end up making corn pop, is actually a very similar chemical reaction as to what is created by the binturong. Now, that doesn't mean that the animal uses the exact same materials. It just means that when these two actions happen, a similar chemical bond happens that creates a very similar scent. Now, their tail isn't only used to aid in climbing, they actually use it to help communicate. A good sign that a binturong is either aggressive or threatened is when they will either shake or raise their tail straight up, giving ample warning to any other binturong or people that they do not wish to be messed with. And with the set of teeth they have, it would be best to follow that warning. See, the binturong is actually omnivorous, however it doesn't hunt. It mostly eats plants, fruits, and others, giving them decent crushing power for their size, but they will also eat meat if they can catch it. Insects, baby birds, eggs, whatever they can mosey across, which also gives them sharp teeth. Now, that doesn't stop one of their biggest threats that end up causing them to be on endangered species lists, which is the illegal pet trade. They are very much sought after for a very specific, let's say, talent that they have, which we will delve into in just a moment. And before we go any further, let's discuss what I am currently working on and why it's at 10 times speed. Well, quite simply, I'm trying to set up their climbing enrichments. This animal is, as I said, extremely arboreal, which means they need a ton of climbable terrain. And I always struggle with climbable terrain, and in roughly 8 minutes, you will watch me struggle a lot trying to get their climbing areas properly set up. Add in the fact that they need a lot of foliage coverage due to their shy nature, and it does certainly end up running me through a loop. Since we still have plenty of time until that debacle, let's get back into the animal's physical characteristics. Now, the binturong does have one extra bit of anatomy that helps it climb, and that would be the fact that their third and fourth toes on their back legs actually are connected so that they have a better grip from their back legs. Just in the event that they may misstep or whatever, they would have a better chance of catching themselves. One last piece of biological information, and probably the most interesting in my opinion, is that female binturong can actually delay embryo implantation, essentially meaning that while the animal can breed all year round, the female has the ability to not allow her eggs to be fertilized until she's within the proper range to give birth in the January to March range, where they usually do. While I'm sure there are a few other animals that can be noted in being able to do this, the only animals I'm aware of are actually sharks and some amphibians being able to delay pregnancy like this. So it just goes to show that the entire Verivid family is just a strange debacle of nature that honestly I can't get enough of. Now, while we had slightly discussed the issues the binturong faces when it comes to exotic pet trade, the biggest danger that they have is actually deforestation. The areas that they live are actually constantly cut down to create plantations to create palm oil. Now, while palm oil is pretty important in the creation of certain cakes, margarine, and other baked goods, they are also used in some forms of cosmetics, shampoos, and soaps. So if you're the kind of person that believes that the best way to curtail bad management is through your wallet, every time you go to buy shampoo, makeup, any of that sort of stuff, just take a look at the ingredients and see if it contains palm oil. While there's no guarantee that any one of us is going to be able to truly change the industry in a way that would save the binturong and other animals of Java and Borneo, it's at least a small step we can try to take if you feel that that is something you can sustainably do. Now, let's discuss what I'm doing in the exhibit. And this is easily one of my favorite tactics to allow some form of covered shelter without needing to actually build something. As if you've seen any of my older videos, you would know that I am not an architect. I'm very bad at making buildings. However, I do excel in natural creation. And what I like to do when I have the ability is, while using large trees with thick foliage, I will add roofs and floors inside the leaves to give a certain area coverage for protective shelter for the animal. With the vast array of different forms of ceilings and other tiles that not only may look natural, like the bamboo one I'm using here, but also being able to change the color of it really helps in keeping it camouflaged and still allowing you to have a more natural exhibit and not need to worry about some form of shelter. I'm sure everyone does pretty much get tired of making caves over and over and over again and are looking for something very interesting to kind of give that capability. And now we have finally reached the point where I'm adding in the last of the general necessities that every animal is going to need: food, water, enrichment. And after we've set it all up, you get to watch me lose my goddamn mind. Before we truly get into the madness, I do want to add one little bit of ecological information about the binturong while we still have a few minutes of sanity left. So, the binturong is actually the main propagator of the strangle fig, which is actually the fig tree that you get in the base game. The way that they do so is quite simple. If you don't know what it means for an animal to propagate a species of plant, it goes simple like this. The plant creates a fruit, in this case a fig. The binturong eats the fig. At some point down the line, the binturong defecates, releasing the seed that was in the fig at a different location. This is done by pretty much every berry. That's actually how all berries work. That's why there is that delicious fleshiness on every berry, is to get animals to eat it, leave, and defecate the seeds at a different location. Now that we've talked about that fun stuff, watch me suffer. As you can see, I am currently very confused. I don't know why it's saying that there isn't enough navigable area for the animal. I felt like I had plenty. The area of the exhibit was over 1,000 square meters, and I figured that, maybe moving the tree itself would help in that endeavor. I do highly recommend getting accustomed to the heat map of climbable and traversable area when making an exhibit. It was certainly something I had to learn way too far down the line. I figure, let's try to remove some of the exhibit and connect the two, because it appears to have considered it as two different areas. Now, let's discuss the fast-paced action going on. First, the binturong made about halfway, and I figured, well, let's connect the two areas. It didn't work. Again, made it about halfway. Figure, well, let's try to make it smaller. Maybe there's too much space between one area to the other, they get tired, and then, make sure that they can reach the other side. Goes a little further, and they climb down the pole. At this point, I'm screaming. So, one important piece of information: you can't stop them from crawling down constructions. However, climbable objects, like the pole, can be turned off as climbable. Well, the animal still didn't quite go too far. And then I decided to make a slant to try to give them the ability there. They made it to the pole, they stopped, and I'm screaming, even louder. I change how the pole is. I put it in a better position. I move the trees. And at this point, I'm like, I don't know what else I can do. There's plenty of space, and they don't do it. So I go, okay, let's try to make it even easier. Let's put some incentive. Put a foraging site in this area. Maybe they just don't care enough to come over here. So now, sending it through, trying to make it, and the bastard turns around again. At this point, I've decided, you know what? Forget it. I'm gonna ditch the first idea of the walls, and I am going to just make a standard raised elevated path like we used to have to do in the base game earlier. Still keeping the walkway above them, but obviously it wasn't working the way I wanted it to. This will be a very common issue you may have when making exhibits, of things not quite working out and having to find workarounds. Don't stress, it happens to the worst of us. Like me, I'm horrible. I wasn't gonna call myself the best. Are you kidding me? Have you seen some of the other YouTubers on here? I'm a joke. Alright. Now I am adding the second walkway in an attempt to give more climbable area and still make it even more aesthetically appealing. I do like the little bars that go in between the logs, giving you a good reference at distance if you want to make it nice and a good seam between them all. Now, there are a few little details that I work on here and there, but due to time and lack of animal information, we are going to pretty much skip all of this stuff, and we're going to jump right up on ahead. And as you can see, we finally have everything properly set up. They have plenty of climbable area, plenty of walking space, plenty of food, plenty of enrichments. So, thank you very much if you were able to actually deal with my madness and the absolutely unhinged craziness that is my standard educational, I use big ass air quotes, my educational experience. One last little bit of information that I would like to add, and that is the fact that, much like civets, binturong are also used to make something known as kopi luwak, which is also better well known as civet coffee. If you thought the poop stuff was done, it is not. The animal will eat and partially digest coffee cherries, and it would poop them out. They would be partially fermented, and that would then be turned into some of the most expensive and allegedly the most delicious coffee known to man. Why? With everything that is poop related with this animal, and the fact that the popcorn smell I was telling you about comes straight from their genitals, this is the strangest, still somewhat most disgusting animal I've spoken about so far. And it's the cutest goddamn thing ever. I don't get it. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, comment, sub, all that fun, happy YouTube stuff. Next episode will be on the black rhinoceros. I'm looking forward to it. I don't really know what I'm going to do with it. Let's see what happens. And hopefully, you may notice an increase in audio quality, because guess who has money to get an actual mic now and not just use my phone? Yay! Maybe soon Prim will actually be, not in 360p. Fingers crossed. Anyway, thank you for watching. Go outside, enjoy nature. Bye-bye.